So in today's blog, I'm going to talk about pension transfers. Now, you might have heard a lot about these in the news or in the press or when talking to friends or family who have worked in the UK and have got defined benefit pension schemes, but it can be very difficult to actually work out whether it's right or not for you to transfer and how the transfer would actually impact on your circumstances. Just to go back to basics on pensions, a defined benefit pension pays you an income for life which is fixed, you cannot change it, and a defined contribution pension pays you usually a flexible pension where the money's invested, you can choose how much you take out, and the size of your pension depends on the amount that was paid in and the investment returns of the funds. So I'm going to run through 3 reasons why you would move a pension and 3 reasons why you would leave it where it is. First of all, with a defined benefit pension scheme, the highest ever payment you will ever get will be the month that you pass away. So when you look at the way people structure their income in retirement, usually in the earlier years when you're more active and enjoying yourself, you're going to spend more. But if you have a defined benefit pension, your income will increase in line with inflation each year, so the highest payment you get is the last payment you get. Whereas if you had your money in a defined contribution scheme such as a SIPP, you can choose how much you take, and you might take more in the early years when you're going on more holidays or perhaps when you've just repatriated to the UK or wherever else you may go and you need to buy a new car and fit out a new house. Second, we look at capital versus income. So with a defined benefit pension, you have an income for life. There's no capital value of that pension once you've started drawing from it. Whereas with a defined contribution scheme, you have a capital asset which can be passed on to your spouse or onto your children or other beneficiaries who you choose. So finally, with the death benefits, a defined benefit scheme will usually pay a spouse's pension, generally 50%, but sometimes we see up to 60% or 2/3. So once the pension scheme member passes away, their spouse will receive a reduced pension. Usually the pensions have some benefits for dependents, but they need to be either under 18 or if they're still in full-time education, the pension can be paid up to age 23. But if you do not have a spouse, then there'll be no provision left for anyone after your death. So you may feel that moving your pension would be beneficial. However, you also need to think about some of the reasons why it might be better to keep the pension where it is. A defined benefit scheme will pay you an income for life, which is guaranteed, although you have to remember that the guarantee is only as good as the person who's giving it. So there isn't a risk of you spending too much in the earlier years and not having enough for your later years, as there is with a defined contribution scheme. But you also need to think about, is that pension scheme sufficiently funded to pay you an income for life? Because if the scheme in today is only maybe 80% funded, how do you know how your benefits will be paid if you are one of the last people in that scheme? Secondly, by moving the pension to a defined contribution scheme, you are taking on the investment risk yourself. You would invest your pension into a multi-asset portfolio which will be put together for you. So usually that will include some equities, some fixed interest, some property, some cash. The final point that I'm going to cover is to do with cash equivalent transfer values. If you have been offered an attractive transfer value, that might be more of a reason to move your pension. But if your transfer value isn't very attractive, it might put you off transferring because you might end up being worse off financially. In recent years, we've seen some really attractive transfer values, and that is because of how they're calculated. The scheme has to set aside a certain amount of assets in order to pay your pension. The scheme will invest these assets into low-risk portfolios, a lot of fixed interest or government investments, government gilts. That is why we are now seeing very high transfer values, because the schemes are setting aside much larger parts of their portfolio for each individual member. So the idea of this video was just to give you an overview of some of the reasons why people do or don't move their pensions. Every client that we come across is different. People have different circumstances, different objectives, and different views on how their money should be managed. Therefore, we recommend that you speak to a financial advisor or a pension transfer specialist to see what your options are and see how a pension transfer could be suitable for you.